It is often said that the strength of Rome was an indestructible current, that its dominion never experienced a significant retreat. But lo and behold, beneath so much sand and silence lies a secret capable of shaking this narrative. The first and greatest resistance that bent the imperial eagle did not come from Europe, but from the forgotten land where the Nile bends. The mystery, my dear, lies not in what is told, but in what has been erased. The truth is that, in the heart of Black Africa, the living fence of the Roman Empire encountered a wall of spirituality and iron that official history preferred to silence, for it shattered the myth of uncontested superiority. Through all paths of time, we are guided by the same voice, the voice that celebrates Rome, the eagle that flew highest, the empire that called itself invincible. But what would happen if you discovered that this glory is only half the story? That, beneath the imposed silence, lies an African triumph so monumental that it had to be erased from the history books? Know that there was a kingdom that dared. A black kingdom, rich in iron and faith, known as Kush. And it was there, in the heart of Africa, that the greatest power of Rome encountered its first and most feared challenge. The command came from a woman, Kandake Amanirenas, the blind queen, who transformed Roman arrogance into humiliation. This is not just archaeology, it is a spiritual revelation. It is proof that ancestral strength, female sovereignty, and faith in native gods were able to bend the Iron Empire, forcing it to negotiate and retreat. This story changes everything that has been taught, showing that African power and civilization were once the driving force of the world. If you feel the call of truth and want to reclaim the stolen glory of our ancestry, start now. Subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, and leave your like so that this flame spreads. And tell us, comment on where you are hearing the awakening of Kandake from. The secret of Kush is about to be revealed. On this journey, we will cross the cataracts of time and plunge into the deep waters of Kush, guided not by textbooks, but by the echo of ancestral drums that celebrated victory against oppression. It is a path back to the source, where female sovereignty and belief in native gods were shields stronger than the bronze of any legion. And what is the spiritual implication of this? Simple, proof that faith in one's own identity is the true power that transcends centuries, remaining intact even when written history tries to make us believe that the struggle was in vain or that it never even happened. It is a knowledge that nourishes the soul of those who seek the truth about their roots. So, as we move towards the silent ruins of Meroe, we no longer look only at ancient stones. We look at the signing of a treaty where Rome admitted its strategic defeat, the tip of the iceberg that hides an entire kingdom of glory and resistance that Western history has been keen to bury. Close your eyes for a moment and smell the scent of time. The air is dry, heavy with memories that the sand tries, in vain, to swallow. There, where the silence is almost a scream, the camera glides over the ruins of Meroe, capital of Kush, showing the austere beauty of a kingdom that dared to dream bigger than any empire. Mystery pulsates in every worn stone. If Rome were invincible, why do the landmarks of Meroe still stand, with their slender pyramids, different, yes, but powerful, bearing witness to an era of splendor that has been conveniently forgotten? It is the architecture that speaks, revealing a civilization rich in iron, gold, and, above all, courage. This symbolic journey takes us to the heart of African resilience. The sand that now sweeps across Meroe is the same sand that, millennia ago, lashed the faces of Roman legions. It was the ashes of a powerful foundry, a metallurgical secret that made Kush a technological and military powerhouse, unshakable in its desolate landscape. The spiritual unfolding here is the feeling that the place has a soul. The wind that blows is not just the desert air. It is the breath of the ancestors who watch over these ruins. They remind us that the glory of a people is not measured by the arrogance of invaders, but by the depth of their spiritual roots in the land. And so, as the sunlight bends and casts long shadows over the royal tombs, the silence invites us to hear the untold story, the prelude to the great battle. From here, we set out to understand what made this place, Tasseti, the indomitable heart that Rome could not break. The story takes us to a precise point on the globe where geography becomes spirituality, the heart of Africa, the land christened by the ancients as Tasseti, meaning land of the bow. It is where the Nile, this vital artery, makes a dramatic bend, as if revering the strength and magic that resided there. The great mystery of this location lies in its power of isolation and connection. Protected by the Nile cataracts, insurmountable natural barriers for invaders, Kush flourished autonomously, absorbing Egyptian wisdom but forging its own destiny, far from the direct influence of the Mediterranean. This cultural journey reveals a kingdom that served as a bridge between sub-Saharan Africa and the ancient world. It was the cradle of gold and incense, from where caravans laden with ivory and spices departed, tracing routes that not only carried goods but also disseminated beliefs and cosmologies. The spiritual unfolding here lies in the sacredness of the Nile. For the people of Tasseti, the river was not just water, it was Hapi himself, the deity of fertility, guaranteeing life and the continuity of the royal lineage, who had the power to summon rain in dry lands. And it is at this crossroads of power and faith, where water blesses the land, that the resistance became legendary. A place so vital, with so many secrets, would not go unnoticed by the ambitious eyes of Rome. This is the stage where sovereignty would be put to the test. Let your eyes behold Meroe, the metropolis of iron and rituals, where more than 200 slender pyramids, with sharp angles and sun-oriented chapels, pierce the horizon. They are different from their Egyptian neighbors, and therein lies their first mystery. Kush did not imitate, Kush adapted and transcended. The mystery of these constructions lies in their own historical rejection. Why have these structures, which marked the tombs of kings and queens for centuries, been ignored by most historians? They are not merely monuments. They are libraries in stone, awaiting the right moment to reveal the names and deeds that Rome tried to silence. On this journey of rediscovery, we realize that the arrangement of the pyramids, bathed in a crimson sunset, evokes a profound solar symbolism. Each evening, the city seemed to perform a ritual of renewal, ensuring that the power of the sun would be reborn with the next monarch. The spiritual unfolding here lies in the strength of the lineage. Each pyramid was a portal to continuity, linking the living ruler to the deified ancestors. It was this unbreakable chain of ancestral power that gave the leaders of Kush the authority to confront any army. And it is under the shadow of these pyramids, on sacred ground, that the true power of Kush, the Kandake, prepared to rise and confront the greatest empire the world had ever seen. The city was ready for war, but above all, to preserve its essence. Forget the singular figure of the king. In Kush, supreme power, the one that decided on life, war and faith, belonged to Kandake, the queen mother. She was the hidden protagonist, a sovereign whose authority came from divine lineage and the approval of the priests, often surpassing that of her own male consort. The great mystery that the world feared was this undeniable feminine force. How could an empire where women had the final say be tamed? Kandake was not a queen consort, she was the earthly embodiment of great goddesses, such as Isis and Mut, and her word was law. She was the spiritual and military defender of the kingdom. In this journey of revelation, we discovered that Kandake's ascension process involved complex rituals, an immersion in ancestral wisdom, ensuring that her rule was not merely political, but intrinsically spiritual. She held control over the arsenal and sacred treasures. The spiritual unfolding here is the celebration of feminine power as the source of resistance. It was Kandake who invoked a Piedmak, the lion god. It was she who ensured that the kingdom was in harmony with the cosmic cycles and therefore immune to misfortune and defeat. And it is this figure, the matriarch, the warrior, the living goddess, who would rise like a wall of fire against the advancing Roman legions, making it clear that, to conquer Kush, it would first be necessary to overthrow a queen with the fury of a lion in her heart. Kandake's power was not ostentation, but a sacred manifesto engraved on her own crown. It was the double crown of Kush, adorned with the radiant solar disk and two imposing plumes, a symbol that told an ancient story of dominion over the earth and, more importantly, over the cosmos itself. The mystery behind the feathers lies in their direct connection to truth and justice, an echo of the goddess Ma'at, showing that power in Kush was inseparable from divine order. The crown was the physical link that united the ruler to the heavens, channeling the energy of the gods directly into the kingdom. The symbolic journey of whoever wore this crown was arduous. It demanded unparalleled wisdom and purity of intention. The double crown represented the union of the two lands of Kush, upper and lower, and the responsibility of maintaining the balance between the visible and invisible worlds. The spiritual unfolding here is the idea that true power resides in harmony. While Rome sought dominion through brute force and iron, Kush ruled through divine authority. The Kandake, by wearing the crown, became invulnerable, for she was under the direct protection of the sun and the eternal law. And it was with this powerful emblem of faith and sovereignty, symbolizing unquestionable authority, that the Kandake prepared to confront the enemy. The crown was a warning. Whoever tried to take Kush would be challenging not only an army, but the sun itself. If Kandake was the soul of Kush, its archers were the nerves and muscles that defended it. They were legendary warriors, feared in the ancient world, and their fame was no mere folklore. They were masters of the use of lethally precise composite bows, an ancient arsenal that terrified the Roman legions. The mystery lay not only in the skill, but in the material. These bows were constructed with layers of wood, sinew, and horn, giving them far greater power and range than the simple bows used in other regions. This created a rain of arrows that the Romans likened to poison falling from the sky. The symbolic journey of the Kushite archer began in childhood, with rigorous training that instilled in the young warrior an almost ritualistic discipline. Each arrow launched was not merely a projectile, it was an act of faith, guided by the gods to strike against injustice and invasion. The spiritual unfolding here is that precision came from connection. Legends said that the archers of Kush were so accurate because they could sense the Ka, life force, of the enemy. Their technique was not just physical, it was a meditation in motion, transforming battle into a sacred ritual of defense. And it was with this formidable arsenal, capable of piercing the iron armor of Roman soldiers and breaking the morale of any front line, that Kush armed himself for the inevitable confrontation. The Romans would learn the hard way that facing the desert meant facing the fury of the golden archers. The moment of confrontation was inevitable. On one side, the iron order of the Roman legions, marching under the banner of the eagle, synonymous with relentless expansion. On the other, the fury of the Kushite desert, guided by the Kandake and protected by ancient forces. It was the clash of two worldviews. The mystery of this confrontation lies not in Rome's numerical strength, but in its arrogance. The Romans underestimated Kush, seeing it only as a wild frontier, ignoring the spiritual and military power forged on the Nile. They thought it would be an easy conquest, but encountered supernatural resistance. The symbolic journey of the Roman legionaries as they advanced south turned into a nightmare. The desert, an ally of Kush, consumed their discipline and their supplies. They fought not only against men and arrows, but against the heat, the thirst, and the overwhelming feeling of being in a territory ruled by unknown and ferocious gods. The spiritual unfolding here is war as a divine trial. For the Kushites, defending their territory was about maintaining Ma'at, cosmic order. In each battle, they felt the presence of a Piedmach, the lion god, transforming the fight into a purification ritual against foreign invasion. It was in this epic clash of titans that Kandake, through strategy and unwavering faith, began to reverse the myth of Roman invincibility. The first great test was only beginning, and the Roman eagle would soon feel the weight of the Kushite lion's paw. In Kush, war was not merely a human strategy, it was a divine manifestation. And the face of this sacred fury was a Piedmach, the lion god, often depicted with a human body, carrying a bow and arrows. He was the ultimate symbol of divine ferocity in battle, the indomitable protector of royalty. The mystery of a Piedmach lies in its duality, The lion represents the wild and uncontrollable power of the desert, while the human body shows its connection to the royal lineage. This deity was not only worshipped, it was invoked, ensuring that the Kushite army fought with the strength of a sacred beast. The symbolic journey of the warriors, before entering combat, involved rituals in honor of a Piedmach. They believed that by channeling the energy of the lion god, their arrows would gain lethal accuracy and their hearts would be freed from fear. It was a true spiritual transformation for battle. The spiritual unfolding here is the idea that defending one's home is a sacred mission. While the Romans fought for territory and wealth, the Kushites fought for their gods and their queen, imbued with an unwavering faith that made them truly fearsome in any confrontation. And it is with the image of a Piedmach engraved on banners and in hearts that the Kushite resistance reached its peak. The legend of the lion god would become the nightmare of every legionary who dared to cross the borders of Taseti, setting the stage for the Kandake's greatest act of defiance. In Meroe, sacred writing manifested itself through the Meroitic script, a mystery of symbols that still challenges the world's greatest sages today. Within these ancient texts lay revelation, prophecies that, according to oral tradition, foretold the invasion of the Iron Empire and the kingdom's subsequent divine resistance. The mystery lies not in what we can read, but in the profound ancestral intuition contained within what remains partially undecipherable. How did the scribes of Kush foresee the arrival of such a distant and powerful enemy? This suggests a web of intelligence and spiritual knowledge that went far beyond mere military strategy. The symbolic journey of the sacred texts reveals that the history of Kush was cyclical. They knew that after the peak would come the challenge, and that faith in their pantheon would be the only map to survival. Prophecy was a manual for action, not a sentence of destiny. The spiritual unfolding here is the idea that ancestral wisdom is the true predictive power. The Kandake and their priests did not fight in the dark. They acted guided by knowledge that gave them a moral and strategic advantage over the Romans, who only saw the present. And it was with the certainty of the prophecy fulfilled that the battle was part of a greater plan of the gods, that the people of Kush marched into battle. The challenge was foreseen, victory was written in the stars. It only remained for Kandake to manifest this truth on the battlefield. Of all the Kandakes, the name that whispers loudest is that of Amanirenas, the queen who would become a living legend. Her figure was imposing, but what made her indomitable was the scar. She lost an eye in combat against the Roman invaders, and even so, blind in one eye, she remained at the head of her army. The great mystery of Amanirenas is not her wound, but the strength she drew from it. The lost eye became a symbol of her unwavering spiritual vision. Where Rome saw weakness, Kush saw sacrifice and a direct connection to the lion god, transforming the queen into an embodiment of resilience itself. This symbolic journey of pain and power shows that true leadership is measured by a willingness to sacrifice. Amanirenas did not hide in her palace. She felt the price of sovereignty in her own flesh. Her presence on the battlefield was a catalyst for courage throughout the kingdom. The spiritual unfolding here is the idea that the queen was the manifestation of the mother goddess. Her wound was the wound of the kingdom itself, and her determination to fight demonstrated that the land was sacred and would be defended to the last drop of royal blood. And it is this image of the blind queen, a wall of flesh and faith, that forged the legend of Kush. She led the counteroffensive so fiercely that the Romans had to rewrite their concept of barbarism. Her fury was about to tear the head off the Roman eagle itself. Kush's greatest act of defiance was not merely winning a battle, it was a symbolic and spiritual act of revenge. Following the successful counteroffensive by Kandake Amanirenas, the kingdom captured a priceless trophy, the head of the bronze statue of Emperor Augustus, the most powerful man in Rome. The mystery lies not in the capture, but in what they did with her. Instead of melting down the bronze, they decapitated her and, in an act of profound desecration and triumph, buried her beneath the threshold of a temple in Meroe, strategically positioned so that she would be trampled by all who entered the sacred precinct. This symbolic journey was a spiritual declaration. The power of Rome was literally at the feet of Africa. Burying the head of Augustus, who considered himself a god in life, was a cosmic humiliation, a ritual that ensured the oppressive spirit of the empire would never find rest or dominion over Kush. The spiritual unfolding here is the supremacy of the native faith. By trampling on the image of Caesar, the Kushites asserted the sovereignty of their own gods, Apidmak and Amon, proving that not even the self-proclaimed Roman god was a match for the fury of Kandake and the ancestors. And it was this bold act, this audacity to bury the glory of Rome beneath the sacred sands of Kush, that would seal the fate of the wars. The world did not yet know it, but the empire had been forced to acknowledge that, in the heart of Africa, there was a power it could not simply conquer. We have arrived at the crucial point, the best-kept secret, the Treaty of Samos, signed around 21 or 20 BC. After Amanirenas' fierce military campaign, Rome, the empire that never admitted defeat, was forced to sit down and negotiate with Kush on equal footing, a very rare occurrence at its peak. The mystery of this forbidden negotiation lies in the fact that Rome not only ceased hostilities but ceded territory to the Kingdom of Kush, formally recognizing its southern borders. Think about it. The empire that demanded tribute from everyone had to concede to guarantee its own peace on the border. The symbolic journey here is the victory of sovereignty over ambition. The treaty proved that resistance, guided by blind Kandake, was more effective than the brute force of the legionaries. Rome preferred to pay a high political and territorial price to avoid the quagmire of a prolonged war in the desert. The spiritual takeaway here is that faith and courage earn respect. By forcing Rome to negotiate as an equal, Kush not only won a war, she established a precedent of dignity and authority that would last for centuries, honoring prophecy and ancestral lineage. It was with the signing of this pact, which was quickly minimized in Roman records, that the Black Kingdom secured its peace and freedom. Kandake did what few dared to dream. She subdued the greatest power in the world. But what else does this historical secret reveal to us about other cultures? Delving deeper into the structure of Kush, we discover something fascinating: a forbidden connection. The prominence of the Kandake and the strong role of oracles and priests in war and state decisions bear striking similarities to the matriarchal and oracular traditions of lost kingdoms of Mesopotamia and ancient Anatolia. The mystery is not a coincidence, but a possible exchange of ancestral knowledge that modern history has attempted to compartmentalize. How do spiritual practices so focused on feminine power and divine consultation, such as those of Kush, resonate in such distant cultures, suggesting a pre-existing network of knowledge? This journey of revelation suggests that Africa was not isolated, but rather a source or a powerful center of cultural and spiritual influence. The strength of Kandake may have roots in a matriarchal wisdom that spread through trade routes and influence, long before Hellenistic rule. The spiritual unfolding here is proof of a global lineage of feminine divine power that has been systematically suppressed. By studying Kush, we revive the knowledge that women's spiritual and political authority was once the norm in great civilizations. And this web of connections shows us that Kush's legacy extends beyond its borders. Its victory over Rome was not merely a military event. It was the affirmation of an ancestral power model that challenged the patriarchal hegemony the Western world was attempting to impose. If Kush's victory over Rome was so decisive, why isn't it in the history books we read today? The answer lies in the silence of history, a deliberate act of erasure. After Kush's decline and the rise of new powers in the region, there was a systematic destruction of its records and temples. The mystery lies not in what was lost, but in what was intended to be hidden. The Treaty of Samos and the triumph of Amanirenas were embarrassing for the narrative of invincibility that Rome and later its cultural heirs sought to perpetuate. Erasing Kush was fundamental to maintaining the idea that Africa was a land of savages without political or military power. The symbolic journey of erasure reveals the politics of memory. History is written by the victors, or by those who manage to survive to tell their own version. Kush, although militarily victorious, lost the narrative battle, being relegated to a footnote or completely ignored. The spiritual unfolding here is the resilience of oral knowledge. Although the temples have fallen and Meroitic writing remains an enigma, the legend of the Blind Queen and her victory over the Iron Empire has survived in the oral traditions, songs, and rituals of the region. And it is from this imposed silence that we seek the truth. By uncovering the secrets of Kush, we are rewriting history from an ancestral perspective, restoring glory to those who conquered it with iron, arrows, and the wrath of the gods. The true power of Kush did not reside in its army, but in a deep and sustaining belief, the reincarnation of ancestors in the royal lineage of Kandake. It was believed that the spirits of great queens and kings of the past returned to inhabit the body of the new sovereign, ensuring the continuity of the kingdom's mystical power. The mystery of this belief lies in how it functioned as an engine of invincibility. A Kandake was not just a woman, she was the sum of the experiences, wisdom, and courage of all her predecessors. To confront Amanirenas was, in fact, to confront an army of deified ancestors. The symbolic journey of this reincarnation is the concept of cyclical time. For Kush, the past was not dead, it was alive and active in the present. This worldview gave them a strategic patience and resilience that the linear and expansionist thinking of Rome could never comprehend or break. The spiritual unfolding here is proof of the immortality of authority. The royal lineage was sacred because it was the vessel of the kingdom's soul. It was this unwavering faith in spiritual continuity that gave them the moral strength to resist any empire. And it is in this unbreakable spiritual legacy that the ultimate explanation for the victory over Rome lies. After all, how can one fight against a kingdom where the most powerful ancestors continue to guide the arrows of their descendants? Despite centuries of silence and religious shifts, the glory of Kush has not been completely extinguished. Today, it is possible to find the heritage in the Nile, the subtle persistence of faith in ancient Kushite deities such as Epidmac and Demonius, which echoes in the folklore, practices, and tales of modern Sudan and Ethiopia. The mystery of this enduring tradition lies in the power of syncretism. The gods of Kush did not disappear, they adapted, transformed, or were absorbed into new beliefs, continuing to protect the people under new names and rituals. It is the ancestral spirit that refuses to die. The symbolic journey of folklore shows us that truth lies hidden in simple legends and stories told by the fireside. It is there that the memory of the great warrior Kandake and the lion god who conquered Rome is transmitted, keeping alive the flame of ancestral identity. The spiritual unfolding here is proof that genuine faith cannot be colonized or annihilated. The essence of Kushite power, respect for nature, appreciation of feminine strength, and connection to the Nile, continues to shape the worldview of local communities. And as we trace these echoes into the present, we realize that the victory over Rome was not an isolated event, but the beginning of a legacy of resistance that continues to this day. The Nile holds the memory, and the people carry it, preparing the ground for the next great revelation. The story of Kush has an impact on identity that transcends time. Their victory over the Roman Empire, the pinnacle of Western civilization at the time, serves today as a powerful beacon of Black resistance against imperial oppression and the narrative of inferiority that has been imposed for centuries. The mystery lies not in what Kush did, but in the power that this story instills in those who discover it. For the African diaspora and for the continent, Kandake Amanirenas is irrefutable proof that strength, intelligence, and sovereignty have always existed, dismantling the myth of historical passivity. The symbolic journey of those who reclaim this history is one of healing and empowerment. Knowing the truth that the first empire to force Rome to retreat was a Black kingdom led by a woman is an act of redemption, of rebuilding a stolen historical self-esteem. The spiritual unfolding here is the idea that history is a foundation for the future. Kush offers a model of unwavering leadership and faith, showing that the struggle for dignity and self-determination is deeply rooted in African ancestry. And when we see the glory of Kush reflected in the eyes of those who seek the truth, we realize that this story is more than an ancient tale. It is a prophecy that ancestral power will never be silenced, echoing across the oceans and inspiring the fight for a sovereign future. We have reached the turning point, the final reflection that should remain in the heart of the listener. If the Black Kingdom of Kush was the first great empire to subdue Rome, forcing it to negotiate and retreat, the question is inescapable: what else has history stolen from us? The mystery is no longer what happened in Meroe, but the vast continent of hidden truths that still lies beneath the imposed silence. The victory of Kush is merely the tip of an iceberg of African civilizations that possessed wisdom, technology, and political power that have been systematically erased. The symbolic journey we propose is one of continuous seeking, the responsibility of unearthing these secrets. Each new discovery about ancient Africa challenges Western dogma and rewrites the very foundation of human knowledge. The spiritual unfolding here is the calling. The story of Kush calls upon us to question, to doubt preconceived narratives, and to recognize that the source of civilization and spirituality is far more complex and rich than we have been taught. And so, as the shadows of the Meroe pyramids lengthen, the truth solidifies. The history of Kush is the key to unlocking Africa's true strength and legacy in the world. The search continues, for many more secrets await the moment to be revealed. And so, we close the cycle of revelation, but the story, my friend, never truly ends. What we witnessed in Kush was not merely a battle lost or won on an ancient map, but the eternal affirmation that the spirit cannot be colonized. The victory of the blind queen, the secret of Augustus's head buried beneath the sands of Meroe, all this is the spiritual legacy of Africa, living proof that sovereignty, faith in ancestors, and the power of the female warrior are forces that withstand all empires. Remember, the desert still holds many mysteries. Beneath each dune, beneath the silence of the Nile, other civilizations sleep, other prophecies unfold. The past is not behind us. It echoes within us, in our identity and in our strength to resist. May the spirit of Epidmac and the wisdom of Kandake guide your own journey in search of truth. To continue uncovering the ancestral secrets hidden within history, we ask that you subscribe and turn on notifications. Together, we will make the past speak.